We're rolling. Welcome to the House Dudes podcast, where we invite you to follow us on our journey towards financial freedom using the power of real estate. I'm Jack Haas.
And I'm Josh Koth. Here at House Dudes, we believe in a couple key principles. Number one, the best way to retain information is by teaching it to others. And number two, a rising tide lifts all boats. We're not competitors, we're a community. So let's get into some real estate investing.
All right, everybody. Today on the show, we have Raphael Vargas, CEO of Real Step and Real Empire. At only 25, Raphael is the founder and CEO of multi-million-dollar real estate companies, Real Step and Real Empire. But his success didn't come easily. We'll ask him about that. After being robbed when he first started in the real estate industry at the age of 21, Raphael put his head down and kept working. It all paid off, and he made $30K in his very first wholesale deal. And in just 3 years, he created a 7-figure real estate business using his unique business model. I want to hear about that also. Raphael and his team now work together to close deals in one of the most competitive markets in the U.S., and they are on track to hit $10 million annual revenue in 2019. He's here to share his story and inspire you along your journey to real estate success. Welcome to the show, Raphael.
Thank you so much, sir. I'm very, very pleased to be here. It's an honor.
So just to kind of establish our locale, I don't know if you knew, but we're in Fargo, North Dakota, and you're in D.C., is that correct?
Actually, we are in, that must have been an old show notes, but we're in Tampa, Florida at the moment.
Oh, Tampa. Okay, cool.
Yeah, so I started in Washington, D.C., and then we moved our operation to Tampa, Florida.
Awesome. Okay. And I definitely want to ask you about working in multiple markets and how that works. But first, I'd love to hear this story about, well, first of all, even before you tried to hire the mentor and got stolen from, what triggered you to even know that real estate would be a good career path or just something that you wanted to be involved with at such a young age in the first place?
Yeah, man. So I started at 21 years old, and I was kind of come from some rougher backgrounds. And so, my mother being a single mother at the time and my mentally disabled brother, we were just in some financial situations that led me to say, hey, I need to become financially successful as fast as possible. And one of my goals was to retire my mother. And so really the reason why I chose real estate was I wanted the fastest path to becoming financially successful as fast as humanly possible. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of vehicles of success, right? You could take the Toyota Corolla or the slower go-kart, which is maybe when I was first starting out, I thought MLM companies were the route to success, Amway and all these, pyramid scheme companies. Yep. And then I tried, building up my own studio or becoming a producer. And that also was a slower vehicle to success. But then I started studying really successful, wealthy individuals, and everybody was involved in real estate. And I saw the speed to success. And that's the reason why I chose real estate at, 21 years of age. And I got started in real estate wholesaling, which is kind of like the first step to real estate, which has gotten me to do real estate wholesaling, scaled my wholesaling company. 6 years later, our wholesaling company is doing millions of dollars in annual wholesale fees, assignment fees, not buying a single property. But I also own a portfolio of real estate, commercial assets and single family assets that are valued almost at $10 million. I live a dream life. I own a Lamborghini Aventador, 700 horsepower car. I've retired my mother 100% now. I take care of my mentally disabled brother. I just live an amazing dream life. And now collectively, our companies now are going to be doing over $10 million in revenue. And now what I do is I teach people how to scale and grow the real estate wholesaling company from nothing. And if a doofus that was at the age of 21 years, I'm 27 years old now. But if a doofus like me can do it with no college education, got kicked out of high school, anybody can do it. And that's what I'm here to do.
So I want to hear this story about, you said you tried to hire a mentor early on and you scraped together $3,000 and he just took off with the cash and you never saw him again. So how did that not dissuade you or just say, well, I'm giving up, this isn't going to work? How did you have the, intestinal fortitude to keep going?
Man, that's a great, great question. You know what it is? It's a really simple answer that not a lot of people are going to like, but it's faith. For me, it's 100% faith. And the reason why I pushed on was because I felt like I've never been a religious person growing up. I kind of grew up in rougher ways, and I was an anarchist, and I'm just crazy stuff that I was involved in. So I never really was a faith-based person or a believer in God, right? But at the age of 21, after all these struggles that I was going through some really dark, depressing times, trying to financially help my family. My mom was working 2 jobs, going to college at the same time. We were leaving my mentally challenged brother at home for, 16 day, so that we can go out and work and provide for our family. And so it was really dark times.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt like God was in my corner telling me, you need to keep going. This was a setback, but it doesn't mean that you're done. You're not dead. You're still breathing. You're here for a purpose. Keep going in real estate. And that faith and that whisper in my ear, because he was the only one whispering in my ear. My mother, she didn't believe in me. She told me to quit real estate. My sister, she didn't believe in me. She told me to quit real estate. But all my friends were out partying all day. All night, traveling all the time, going to parties, going to Miami, having a blast, while I was out here stuck writing stupid, yellow letters and putting up bandit signs at nighttime. And they're making fun of me, telling me that it's never going to work, that I have no education. How can I ever do real estate? Right. So no one believed in me, but God was the only one in my corner. And even my own mentor didn't believe in me. That's why he robbed me. He robbed me, took my money. He didn't even believe in me either. And so that's what led me and pushed me and gave me the fortitude to keep going.
That's a great lesson. That's something I hear time and time again from other successful investors, is that persistence above all else is really the key, and just keeping your head down and doing the work and not giving up, even though negative things happen, it's tough to convince people to do that. So kudos to you for pulling out of that and realizing you were still on the right path and having faith, like you mentioned.
Yeah, man. Thank you, bro.
Yeah. So when you started, you kind of were doing wholesaling first, and that's common just because that requires, less of your own cash. Basically, you're finding the deal and selling it to another investor for a small profit. But it says here that you netted $30,000 on your first deal. And that's a pretty large assignment fee right out of the gate. Were you kind of spoiled after that?
No, absolutely not. I did that was my first deal. I remember getting that check and leaving the office like crying, because it was like, it was a really hard time for me to close that first deal. It was one of the hardest moments of my life. And it was like the first taste of success. Mm-hmm. And I don't know how people on this podcast feel. Maybe I don't know what kind of level and skill people you are watching on this podcast, but maybe you're still trying to get that first deal. And I'm telling you, it's 100% worth it. Or maybe you've already gotten a couple deals and you want to scale your company. You know exactly how it feels to close that first deal, to show the naysayers that it is possible. And it was a large deal, but I was not spoiled after that, because I had to pay taxes. I had to pay a business partner 50% of that deal. So I really only made $15,000 on that deal. And immediately I had to pay back a bunch of dues, a bunch of credit cards I was paying overdue. So I was in the same exact stressful situation. I wasn't spoiled, unfortunately.
Do it again, right?
Yeah, I had to go do it again. And, but it was a moment of really, a great moment of success in my life.
Yeah, the first one's definitely always the hard. It seems like the hardest and feels the best too.
Amen.
So tell me about the markets that you're working in currently. Which city did you grow up in? Was it in DC or Tampa? Yeah,
I grew up in the DC metro area, and started my. I'm sorry.
And you began wholesaling there in DC.
Yep. Exactly. Began wholesaling in DC. My first couple deals were all from DC. Mm-hmm. And then from DC, I started gaining some success, and I built a 7-figure business. I was making $1 million at the age of 24, 23, mm-hmm. 23, 24. I was making $1 million just wholesaling real estate. And then I just started buying a couple rental properties at that time as well. And then I said, you know what? Wholesaling, why can't I do this nationwide? Why can't I do this nationwide? I'm literally taking a piece of paper and I'm selling a piece of paper. Why the heck can I not take this and do this nationwide? And that's what I started doing. So I started testing out, Tampa, Florida. I had a resource out there, a realtor, a friend of mine that was in Tampa, Florida. And I started testing it out from DC, doing deals in Tampa. And immediately we started doing almost $100,000 a month in Tampa from DC. And I said, I think I'm onto something. And then from there, we moved our entire operation to Tampa. And then from Tampa, we've now expanded from Tampa to Charlotte, Atlanta, Philadelphia, Baltimore, Orlando, Sarasota, Miami. So now we've opened up almost 8 metropolitan markets, and our goal is to open up 40 within the next 2 years here. And so we're super excited. We're super pumped up. Our companies are generating, just the wholesale company is generating roughly about $5 million this year. And our education company is scaling extremely fast. My portfolio of rental properties, I'm liquidating all of those properties at the moment. So wholesaling is just an amazing first step to financial freedom, you know?
Right. And yeah, because one that doesn't take a lot of your own capital to begin, which is
almost nothing. I mean, the only risk is marketing, you know?
Yep, exactly. So tell me about when you decide to expand to another market, what resources, because obviously if you can't be there all the time, what personnel resources do you have kind of on the ground in each market in order to be a successful business in that particular market?
You know, that is a great question. The way that I do it is the way that our company does it and our acquisition team does it, right, is we have one person on the ground that we consider as a runner and a real estate agent. So we build a relationship with a real estate agent before entering any market. We get access to the MLS in that area so that we can properly evaluate every single deal that comes in and every single homeowner that calls in asking to sell their property. So we just have a real estate agent in these markets. And when these calls come in, we evaluate them right there over the computer in our headquarters in Tampa, Florida. I'm in my conference room right now. We have a 5,000 square foot office, and we evaluate it right there over the phone. We use the MLS to make offers right over the phone, and that's it. I mean, we make offers to homeowners right over the phone in 7 minutes. If they agree to the offer, we send them a DocuSign agreement right there over the phone via email. They get it. They sign it. The fastest deal we've ever signed is 10 minutes, making them an offer, agreeing to it, sending it to them, and then signing it right over the phone. It's that easy. If we can't get it over the phone, we then send out and set an appointment for our runner in that market to go out, meet with the homeowner, and secure the contract with that person, in person.
So give me kind of the basic framework of a typical deal, like in Tampa, let's say, what's your typical ARV of the types of properties you're purchasing? And then how much under that are you typically getting them for? And then what's a typical wholesale price to another investor that you'll sell it for?
That's a great question. And every single market is obviously different. I'm not just looking at Tampa, and multiple markets are different. But what I did is I hired a data scientist to evaluate the top metropolitan markets in the nation with the price points that have met a perfect wholesale fee, right? So our perfect wholesale fee, our average deal size is about $17,000 right now within all markets that we're in, about $17,000. And what we determined was the $17,000 average wholesale fee, we have to be in areas where ARVs, after repair values, are between 180 to 300. And so we enter markets where ARVs or after repair values are between that 180 to $300,000 mark.
Okay, so that gives you, in that range, you find enough homes available and then enough investors that want to purchase those from you.
Exactly. Correct. Yep. And it's kind of like the medium, price point of homes in America, right? So the average American can afford those homes, which means that most investors, it's easier to sell those homes because there's a bigger buyer pool, So I'm not doing any luxury stuff, high-end stuff. Now, we are doing self-storage development, and that is a core focus of our core company, buying self-storage and developing that. That is our main focus as well. But, we're not wholesaling and focusing on wholesaling those assets. We build the consistency of the single-family asset business in wholesaling.
And that's a great lesson for everybody that's listening. You're not trying to create a market. You're going where the wide swath of the market is and where the bulk of those homes that could be wholesaled exist, and you're figuring out where that is, and that you're staying in that price range, which is very smart. Rather than trying to create something out of nothing. Don't reinvent the wheel, right? Just go where the bulk of the homes are.
Exactly.
That's great. So let me ask you this: when you're looking for the boots on the ground, obviously, you have to have a ton of trust and really, a lot of confidence in these people. How do you go about hiring and evaluating people to hire in these remote markets?
That's a great question. Honestly, to be honest with you, we don't have that serious of a qualification process because, again, 85 to 90% of our deals that we secure are over the phone. Mm-hmm. And I know that blows a lot of real estate investors' minds when we tell them and we show them, but the reality is it works. It's the scalable model. And so it's not like it's the core part of our business and that they are so needed and we need them so badly to lock up our deals. So to be honest, we just find real estate agents that have had some success listing properties.
Mm-hmm.
And so if they have success listing properties, we know that they can deal with homeowners, they can deal with clients, which means they can represent our best interests when meeting homeowners to try and secure the investment property. And so, yeah, that's it, man. I mean, it's nothing, it's not rocket science. We don't really evaluate them too thoroughly. As long as they have success, proven success as a real estate agent, we hire them.
Yeah, it makes sense, because then honestly, you can plug somebody else in if they fail or not interested in continuing or whatever. It's not that hard to plug someone else in, I guess, because really the system survives the person.
Exactly. And again, the majority of the deals that we secure are over the phone. So we only need them for about 10% of the deals that we get.
And really for them, it's not a big time suck, because think about your average real estate agent taking a couple around to look at 20 houses over a weekend. The amount of time they're putting in versus just making some phone calls on your behalf.
Correct. Exactly. You got it.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. You can see why that's very scalable. So let me ask you about when you're making the offers over the phone, obviously when we think of wholesaling and buying at a deep discount, you're thinking of people that are fairly either desperate or in some type of distress, or the property's in some type of distress. Is that typical with your deals, or you just have your business model scaled and fine-tuned so perfectly that you can offer a little more than the competition? Or how are you getting these locked up so easily over the phone without as much scrutiny or having to be there in person?
So the way that we do that, it's pretty simple. So it all starts with the marketing. We find only areas that are cookie cutter type properties that have a lot of investor activity. So it all starts with the marketing. So we're only getting calls in from these type of areas where there's cookie cutter homes and a lot of investor activity. So what that means is when we get those calls in and our acquisition guy gets on the phone with these people, they can easily see, hey, Susie's home is 1,000 square feet. There's a perfect comparable property, 1,000 square feet. An investor just bought one for 120,000. What does that mean for us? We know that, look, people complicate real estate wholesaling too much, and that's what frustrates me, is that it's overcomplicated. You buy a book on wholesaling and it says, oh, take 65% of the ARV minus repairs, minus your fee, minus this and that. It's too confusing. Right. I simplified it, and I wanted to just simplify it for our people over the phone and simplify it for the new investors. And this is what it is. In business, you have a client. And all I care about are what are my clients buying for. My clients are investors. So all I care about are what are investors in that neighborhood buying for. And if there's 3 comps that consistently show an investor just bought this home for 120, renovated it, and sold it now for 230. Another investor that bought it for 125, renovated it, sold it for 232. Another investor that bought it for 119, renovated it, sold it for 250, right? Mm-hmm. I know my investors are buying for 120, and 120 is roughly the top of the market. Mm-hmm. Meaning, if a homeowner calls in and says, I want $100,000 for my property, I know I can secure that property for $100,000 and sell it to that exact same investor for 120. So my sales reps, when our acquisition guys get the contract and give it to our sales reps who sell the deal to investors, what do? It's really easy. They go to the MLS and they call those 3 investors and say, hey, I saw you just bought a house for 120. You want another one? Hey, I saw you just bought this house for 119. Want another one? I saw you just bought this house for 125. You want another one? Right? That's literally all they do. And so it all starts with the marketing the right areas, getting calls from the homeowners in those areas, evaluating and making the offers based upon what investors are buying for in that area, and then literally selling that freaking contract to the same investors that you see in the comparable properties.
Right.
So it's simple, man.
Your spread is that, you said you're trying to make that 17 grand average. So as long as that spread exists, then you're golden.
Exactly. 100%, Josh. 100%.
So let me ask you this. When you said you're targeting the cookie cutter markets, what's your main methods of marketing to these areas?
Great question. So we do a lot of different type of marketing. Our biggest one, and this is going to surprise you, maybe not, but our biggest one is direct mail. We do massive amounts of direct mail, but we also do massive amounts of cold calling as well. So those are our two strongest forms of marketing.
And when you're, direct mail, that's, I'm going to hear that all the time. So, I mean, it seems like a kind of outdated method, but it's one of the ones that still works. So, that makes sense that you're doing what works, obviously, because you're very successful. But when you're targeting these specific areas, do you just blanket an entire area, or do you have other criteria that you overlay over the top, like, if they're delinquent on taxes or they have a certain amount of equity or something like that, or you just blanket the whole area? Tell me about your list.
No, absolutely. So yeah, we have a bunch of different lists. I mean, we get niche lists, but we also have blanket lists as well. Well, what we do is we really track the success rate of our postcards, of our lists. We track them on a month-to-month basis, so we're able to make quick adjustments in our marketing. So, for example, one of the best lists that we have is something, like a probate list. We get a probate list from successorsdata.com. Everybody can do that here, and we direct mailed it and we cold called it. Right? That's probate. So another great list is obviously tax delinquent. We get that from Rebo Gateway. We get a list from, another phenomenal list that we get are like expired listings. You can get that from MLS, mailing all the expired listings that are that were in distressed shape. Right. So there's just so many distressed lists that there are out there. Like absentee lists are obviously phenomenal lists as well. Yep. And so we just duplicate the same marketing effort. Like, it's just simple, man. Like, I just simplified the whole business. We just duplicate the same marketing effort in every single one of the markets that we're in.
So when you're doing the postcards and you're tracking, you mentioned here in your notes that the importance of a good CRM. So tell me about how all this data gets tracked, especially having multiple markets. It must be kind of complicated. And you said you really have to simplify things. So how do you track all this activity?
That is a great question. Everything is automatically tracked in our CRM. So our CRM literally just automatically tracks all of it. Tracks everything.
Do you have one that you love in particular that you've developed? Or I know there's a few big ones out there, but.
Yeah. So we're actually building out our own custom CRM at the moment. So we're really excited about that. We're going to release it to the public really here shortly, hopefully within the next 6 months. So we're building our own. But in the meantime, yes, right now we are using Podio. Phenomenal. It's great. I mean, if you don't have a really scaled wholesale operation, $5 million, $10 million plus, you don't need your own custom-made CRM. But Podio is a phenomenal option. I love Podio by every which way. There's obviously a lot of limitations, which is why we're building out our own. But for scaling to the level that we're at right now, it's a phenomenal tool. I love Podio.
Great. Okay. Well, that's good to know. So let me ask you how you keep your mind sharp and your personal development. And I know you're big time into education, and you have an education piece of your company as well. How do you keep that? Keep yourself inspired as far as your own personal growth?
Man, that's a phenomenal question. I keep myself inspired as I stay around really high level individuals, people that are worth, tens of millions, hundreds of millions. I was just at my buddy's house. He lives in a castle in Orlando. Literally, it's a castle, and it's probably about, 20,000 square feet, castle on the water in a huge lake. And, I was at his house, and he runs a $45 million sales company. And I was meeting with him because he's a good friend of mine. And he's also teaching me about, sales processes and systems and things like that. That stuff really inspires me, man. Seeing him at the age of 37 doing that inspires me. I have a mentor that, runs a multi-billion-dollar corporation, and he owns billions and billions of dollars literally worth of real estate. I think about $6-7 billion worth of real estate. That stuff really inspires me, being around people like that. What inspires me a lot as well is seeing that I'm not even close to touching my potential every day, getting close. The biggest thing that inspires me is not anybody else, not comparing myself to anybody else. That inspires me to only a certain degree. Because what happens once you reach that level of degree? Then you got to look for other people, and people are always going to let you down. What inspires me the most, though, is realizing my own potential and realizing that my faith, God has a humongous purpose for me, and me having clear direction and clear vision as to that purpose for me, that inspires me the most. Seeing that I'm not even close to touching my potential. And every day I got into the office this morning with my business partner, 6:30 in the morning. I was up until 12:30 last night, working, praying, reading, and just locking in. What inspires me the most, again, is just locking into my purpose, God's purpose for me, and realizing that I'm not even close to touching that potential. And that inspires me the most, bro, just to be honest.
No, that's great. And, I love hearing that. And it's a common theme when we interview people, just being around people that, the people that you're closest to and that you surround yourself with will have an influence on your own activities and your own success. So always keep in mind who you're hanging out with, right?
Amen.
All right, awesome. Well, we're going to wrap this up here, Raphael, but I just wanted to thank you so much for taking the time to speak with the REI Rookies podcast today. And we'll definitely put all your information, your URLs in the show notes, so everybody can reach out if they have interest in learning more about what you're doing and especially the education piece, and if you get the CRM going, all that kind of stuff. So just want to say thanks so much for joining us, and I really appreciate your inspiring story.
Oh, thank you so much, man. It was an honor.
All right. Have a great day.
You too, man.
We've put a lot of effort into providing useful content, and if you've found value in the show and have any interest in supporting us with a small donation, head over to patreon.com/housedudes.
And if you have any thoughts or questions, shoot us an email at info@housedudes.com. You can also find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter @housedudes. And if you like what you're hearing, head over to iTunes, subscribe, rate, and review the podcast. It really helps other investors out there find the show.
And remember, massive positive impact requires
massive positive action. We'll see you next time. This episode was brought to you by housedudes.com. Do you live in a good cash flowing market? If so, Turnkey isn't the best choice for you. You should buy in your market. If you don't live in a great market for investors, where can you find profitable cash flowing properties? We love the Midwest, where prices are reasonable and the people are great. We personally invest here and have lived in the area all of our lives. So how does Turnkey work? We find the property, we rehab the property, and we find you a tenant and place you under the care of our local property manager, who we trust with all our own investment properties. I'm sure you have questions about how the process works and what to do next. If that's the case, fill out the contact form on housedudes.com, and we'll reach out to see if you are a good fit for our business. We have a limited supply of properties every month, so we can only sell to a select few qualified buyers. We'll see you on housedudes.com.
I don't like to tell a man what to do with his money, but if you ain't investing in property, then you're dumber than a dummy.
I'm not dumb. I'm smart.
Well, buy property. That's my advice.